Tā kina te au ka riri, tā kina te au ka ngua, tā kina ngā au o te tonga, tā kina ngā au o te wanganui iatara. Nā tai eke ngā o Pōwhiri mātea, tā kina i arango te whenua. Ko rongo ki te waka tūpua, ko rongo ki te waka tāuito, e rū i te one i uta, e rū i te one i tai, e rū i a ranginui e tū nei, e rū i a papatu anuku e takoto nei, e rū i a tangaroa. Pua u te one pākini te one ko te one itua kamakawarua karanga tupua karanga tāuito ki tona waka māroro au. He toka aumi i aroa, he toka aumi i ronga mau, kia mākoa i te hauriri, kia mākoa i te haunguha, heke heke iho i te rangi kātutu a niwa niwa, ngā au oro ki wao i te haupā mai wao, ngā auriri ki te au mārino o te wanganui i atara. I te ao i te pō, i te ao i te pō, hau a whiowhio, hau mā takataka, hau no te awa o te ora o te Ātiawa, no runga i te rangi taranaki wānui Ngāti Toaranga Tira. Hau ki te wanganui i atara ki tō tātou whare pare mate e tutu mai nei. E rongo whakairihi a ke kirunga turuturu o whiti whakamaua kia tīna, hau mie hui e, tāi ki e. Ai ngā manu e tau nei tenei, ka mihi atu ki a koutou. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Nate, and I'm very humbled to come on behalf of the local iwi, Te Ātiawa, with my whānau here today, some of us from Te Ātiawa, the local iwi, but also for Parliamentary Service and Office of the Clerk as well. So I say, mihi atu ki a koutou e tai mai ki konei. Ki tō tātou minita, to our Minister who has come here, tēnā nō rā koe tō mana e tainga mai ki konei. The voice and knowledge that you bring into the space today and to host our kaupapa, we say thank you, tēnā koe, tēnā koutou. Ai, hara mai e te whānau, hara mai I raro I te taumaru, maru o tō tātou maunga e tu atu rā, a rā ko te ahumairangi ki te tahataha nei o ngā awa e rere kauana a rā ko Waititi. Welcome to our parliament, and when I say ours, that's everyone's parliament. The carving that's out the front there you would have walked through. That carving is named Te Huakina Te Ao, meaning this parliament is open to everyone, no matter where you are from. We welcome you, we welcome you, we welcome you. We welcome you under the maunga that stands behind parliament here. You won't be able to see it from here, whānau, but yeah, it's there, it's behind parliament, called Te Ahumairangi, which has stood here since the ancient times of land formation when it came out of the depths of the ocean. But also we welcome you here to a place that was once or still is named Waititi, which means the waters of the tikoka tree. You might have seen at the front of Parliament House here, the humble tikoka trees out there. That is to remind us of the old name and the stream that still runs under Parliament that has been urbanised, but it still flows today, and you can hear it down the front of the steps there next to that big, huge monument. And so the old name for this whenua where our hapu once was is called Waititi. And also, it's where the shoreline used to come, so we would call it, Waititi and, oh gee, I've forgotten it, but there's another name anyway, Kaiota. We used to name it Kaiota as well, as this is where we once grew our marakai. So it's a place historically etched in sustenance and well-being. So even today, as Parliament stands here, the centre of our democracy, that is the new form of sustenance for everyone. And so we welcome you here to Waititi, and we welcome you here to the centre of politics, the centre of voices, ara ko tō tātou whare paremata. I'm known to go down rabbit holes, but I won't keep you all day because I've got to go over to the tribunal after this anyway. I just want to say, mihi atu ki ngā kairongoa, to you healers that have come here today on a good kaupapa, to heal the communities out there and to keep them safe when it comes to waipiro. I was thinking of that word that's written on your banner here, waipiro, and how I mentioned Waititi, the waters of the tikoka tree. And you know, when we say waipiro, we could say the happy drink, we could say the drink that stirs the emotions, or we could even say the putrid drink when we say piro. Piro are your emotions, and so this waipiro stirs the emotions in your body. Not in a good way all the time, if you're not onto it enough. And so when we think of waipiro, kia whakatū pato I e rā wai. Hoki mai anō ki te wai Māori. Not the waters of Māori people, I'm saying the waters that are natural, the waters that sustain us. And so the last thing I say to you, today you actually share the waters, everyone in the same room, ngā wai e rere kauana o te awa kairangi. The Hutt City River is our water of sustenance for all the communities in Wellington. And so if you've taken a drink of the waters of Te Awa Kairangi today, we are connected in this space together. Kei a koutou ngā ipukura e mau ana te mana o Te Awa Kairangi. Nō reira, e hoa mā, on the good thought of love and compassion to all people, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou. As you can see, I don't have my auntie here with me today to sing a waiata, but I've got you fabulous people here to so you might know the song by Papa Morvan Simon, Te Aroha, Te Aroha. You might be going, oh, that song again, but do you know the second verse though? Oh, there's your challenge, okay. But we'll just do the first today so we don't put anyone in shame. So, e tū tātou. Anyone want to start us off? Because I always go way up in the rafters and we're screaming. Te whakapono me te rangi mari e tātou e. I know, because we're just warming up. Te aroha, te whakapono me te rangi mari e tātou e. Oh, ka pai whānau. We could be ready for Matatini in 2 years. That's if Minister Goldsmith gives us some more fun. No, I'm joking. No. E noho tātou, and thank you to my tuahine. As the song says, from love, compassion, faith, and peace, let it be those things that guide us now and into the future. Kia ora tātou katoa. You can give me a clap if you want to, as well. Tēnā.
Kia ora. He mihi mahana ki a koutou katoa. Warm greetings to you all and welcome to the Alcohol and Mental Health Symposium 2025. My name's Jehan Casinader. It's my absolute pleasure to be with you here at Parliament today. We're going to have a day of discussion and debate about how we can address the link between alcohol and mental health. Now, in the room today, we have 150 people. It is almost a full house, and I think if we had this hui in the middle of last week, it might have been a little bit different, but we're very glad that the sun is out and so many of you have been able to join us from around the motu today. I'd like to add my welcome and thanks to New Zealand's very first Minister for Mental Health, the Honourable Matt Doocey, who's hosting us here at Parliament today. Minister, great to have you with us, and thank you for sharing your remarks with us. We'll have the Minister join us on the stage very, very shortly. Now, along with the Minister, who do we have in the room today? We have health leaders, health promoters, academics, officials from both the Ministries of Justice and Health, NGO leaders and staff, mental health professionals. We have local government represented, the Royal New Zealand College of GPs, kaupapa Māori health agencies, Pacific health leaders, police, community action leaders, and we also have many people with lived experience in the room as well. Now, that is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure we have many other groups and communities represented as well. Welcome to all of you. Some of you have decades of experience in tackling alcohol harm in our communities. Some of you have decades of experience in mental health. Some of you work in policy or commissioning, and as I mentioned, some of you have a deep personal connection with this kaupapa as well. All of your views and your experience and your insights are valuable today, and we look forward to your contributions to the kōrero we will be having up here on the stage. I know that for many of you, your day-to-day work is challenging. It is relentless. There are probably days where it feels a little bit thankless. But today we want to shine a spotlight on the contribution that you make, often quietly and behind the scenes, as we tackle these challenges. So thank you for taking some time to step away from your desk, your clinic, your station, your consulting room, your office, or wherever it is that you do your mahi. This is a chance for you to step away from business as usual, to reflect on your own practice, to connect with like-minded people who are working in this sector, and to contribute to an important conversation about how we can shine a greater spotlight around the country on issues relating to alcohol and mental health. So, a little bit of housekeeping before we get underway. Please keep your visitor stickers on for the duration of your visit. You're welcome to take photos in this room, but not in any other part of the complex. We do have a photographer here for part of the day, and we have some videography as well. Please let the team know if you do not want to be captured in any of those photos. Captured sounds like quite a strong word. If you hear an alarm, please follow the instructions of Parliament staff. If there's an earthquake, please drop, cover and hold. Keep your phones off or in silent mode, and the bathrooms are out the door down here or back down the stairs where you walked in. I've also been asked to tell anyone who's speaking today to please stay close to the microphone so that your comments are picked up by our audio equipment. Kai will be served in this room. There's tea and coffee down there. Feel free to help yourself at any time, and lunch will be down here on my right. Now, we will be hearing from a stellar lineup of speakers and panelists, and they are very keen to answer your questions when we have time for them. So I'll give you a heads up when we have sessions that allow for questions, and we will be taking questions via slido.com. Now, many of you will have used this before. The great news is that you don't need to download an app, because the last thing the world needs is yet another app. All you need to do is go to slido.com and pop in that code, which you might want to write on the back of your hand. We'll give it to you later as well, 204-8572, and you can pop your questions in. You can vote for other people's questions, and I'll try and get to as many of those as I can during the day. Wi-Fi is called Parliament Guest, no password, no fee, nothing. We're in Parliament after all. Imagine if you had to pay for Wi-Fi. That will get you straight through. Now, I also just want to acknowledge before we get underway that today's symposium will cover some challenging content. And yes, we have many people in the room who work in this space, but we also have people in the room with lived experience. And if you would like to pop out and have a breather at any point during the day, you are welcome to go into the very historic Legislative Council chamber, which is not occupied today. The doors are open, and that space will be available for you throughout the day. Please also have a chat with the Alcohol Healthwatch team if you'd like to debrief with anyone. And I'd like to, on that note, acknowledge the Alcohol Healthwatch team. They've been really instrumental in pulling this event together. So, as we get underway, it's my pleasure to introduce Andrew Galloway, who's the Executive Director of Alcohol Healthwatch. Andrew has extensive experience in public health, alcohol policy, health promotion, and regulatory roles, both in central and local government. Andrew has been with Alcohol Healthwatch for a year and a half, and he's really looking forward to opening our day today. So let's give Andrew a warm welcome to the stage.
Tēnā tātou katoa, ko tirana, engari, ko tamaki makaurau, te whenua tapu. Ke orake au e noho ana, he director au whakatupo, Waipiro, ko Andrew Galloway taku ingoa, tēnā tātou katoa. I am Andrew Galloway. My whānau trace back to Scotland on both sides. However, I hail from Orake and Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. I'm the Executive Director of Alcohol Healthwatch. Our small independent NGO has been around for over 30 years, and our role is to reduce alcohol-related harm and inequities, providing a range of regional and national health promotion services. Ngā mihi nui Nate and Ātiawa, from Ātiawa, for the mihi. Thank you for the welcome to Parramatta Parliament and to your whenua. Kia ora. I'm delighted to open today's Mental Health and Alcohol Symposium, shortly followed by the APSAD, Australasian Professional Society on Alcohol and Drugs. What a mouthful. Thank you to the Minister of Health, the Honourable Matt Doocey, for hosting us here in your whare today. We're excited to hear from Minister Doocey as Aotearoa, New Zealand's first Minister of Mental Health, and I want to acknowledge Minister Doocey's earlier career, including working in mental health and healthcare management in Aotearoa and abroad. I look forward to your address. These events are a lot of work to put together. Up front, I would like to acknowledge the small but hard-working team who helped us create an agenda for the day, secured panels and speakers to inform and inspire us, and generally kept forward momentum. Our committee, Ōropu, included Lizzie from Alcohol Healthwatch, Tom Devine and Bella Ansell from Health Promotion Director at Health New Zealand, Dwayne from Pacific Mental Health and Addictions Waitemata, Rose Crossan, Jude Ball, and Professor Joe Bowden from the University of Otago, Kate Enright from Mental Health, Health New Zealand, Mark from Lavar, and Jessie Witiri, last but not least, from E Tipu I Rea Whānau Services. Our theme, Mā te wai kia ora, transforming our waters, transforming ourselves, is significant. To me, this theme recognises the ability we have to transform, prevent, and intervene, disrupting the heavy flow of health and social burden that we experience from the widespread availability of alcohol in Aotearoa. If we can reduce the flow of alcohol in Aotearoa, we all stand to benefit from enhanced mental health outcomes. So we're not short of reviews in Aotearoa, New Zealand. You can see a slide with at least the last couple of decades towards the present day. As we look on the evidence, Romalo, Groot and Adams said in a 2022 article on New Zealand health reforms, when it comes to mental health reforms, it's helpful to look at the road ahead while paying attention to the road behind. This paper spelled out a discourse analysis of Aotearoa's mental health journey, including the many mental health policies we've had in Aotearoa. There are some that deserve to remain in the history books, like the Lunatics Ordinance of 1846, New Zealand's first mental health legislation. Not dwelling on the earlier history, the 60s and 70s saw the closure of large psychiatric hospitals replaced with community care. The 90s saw a dramatic shift and a clear articulation of kaupapa Māori, Indigenous approaches to mental well-being. We saw the development of recovery approaches and strengthening of service user voice, known today as lived experience. And then there was the application of public health approaches, chiefly in the form of mental health promotion. Recovery approaches took off in response to several inquiries from Judge Ken Mason. This saw the appointment of the Mental Health Commissioner and the blueprint advocating for improved resources for people experiencing serious mental health concerns. The Ministry of Health outlined a range of potential approaches and building on strengths. Unfortunately, no funding was allocated, but despite that, we had amazing initiatives like the Like Minds, Like Mine destigmatisation campaign launched in 1997, featuring, among others, Sir John Kirwan. The reviews went on. Another approach with an addiction focus saw the setting up of the KAD networks. We saw the Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission charged and resourced to begin a process of reorientation. The authors, Romalo and all, noted there are substantial changes still required in 5 areas. Lived and living experience perspectives needing to be integrated throughout services. The scaling down and, in some cases, the elimination of coercive practices such as seclusion, restraint, and compulsory treatment. Incorporating both primary health and public health approaches into existing systems, and urgent legislative reform regarding tobacco, alcohol, gambling, and illicit drugs. This, of course, needs a capable workforce in both public health and primary health approaches. One of our most recent reviews, He Ara Oranga, had a recommendation within it, which it's important to recognise is still having some consideration, taking a stricter regulatory approach to the sale and supply of alcohol, informed by recommendations from the 2010 Law Commission Review, the 2014 Ministerial Forum on Alcohol Advertising and Sponsorship, and the Ministry of Justice 2014 paper on price. It's my submission today that we've had enough time for consideration. We are now at a time where we cannot afford to not take action. Let's kick that ball back into play. Lizzie, my team member, has put together a helpful aid to demonstrate the complicated but also interdependent intersection between alcohol and mental well-being. If we're to be successful in driving change to one, we need to tackle the other. We note the environment's a factor, the system's challenges, including, importantly, resourcing that disparity between mental health and addictions. We are pleased to see a start on actions towards fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, FASD. But we still need to see meaningful action, and we look forward to the prevalence study, which will no doubt provide another reason for Big P policy change. We recognise that alcohol consumption and mental health are 2 sides of the same coin. The impact of doing nothing will see direct harm, harm to others, stretch services, and if we want to achieve change, we need to make some decisions. Today we'll look at the actions we need to see implemented to achieve sustained change. I really do look forward to listening to Christy Kokotis, our colleague from FARE in Australia. We'll also hear from experts in kaimahi from community-facing roles, academia, service delivery leadership, and importantly, all of you that have taken the time to be here today. We extended the invitation to this symposium to the Cross-Party Mental Health and Addictions Wellbeing Group, and I'm delighted that Ingrid Leary will be in throughout the day. The Cross-Party Group was established in 2019 following a recommendation in He Ara Oranga, and I acknowledge Minister Doocey's role in the early formation of that group. At the opening of the Cross-Party Group, Sir John Kirwan, a well-known mental health and advocate, and if you're old enough, you'll remember All Black, echoed the founding MP's sentiments, putting politics to the side. Sir John said at the launch, "My challenge to politicians, don't use this as a football." Sir John noted Kiwis are often taking on lofty goals, often overcoming challenges, and it was Sir John's impression that we had dropped the ball on this one. Sir John finished his address at the opening stating that we should have the lofty goal of being one of the greatest countries in the world with the greatest levels of mental health. Sir John said, "This is Neverest. One step at a time, we can knock the bugger off." When I think about alcohol policy in Ātiawa, we have so much to gain from some population policy change on alcohol. These changes would inconvenience only a few, and in perspective should be one of those small steps we can take to knock the bugger off. We have the evidence for change, we have the mandate for change, and we have no reason not to take up the heavily evidenced and long-awaited changes to alcohol policy in Aotearoa, New Zealand. That's where I'll leave my address today. My next job is to welcome my colleague from APSAD. APSAD came on board the symposium planning through a suggestion from APSAD's New Zealand Council member, Dr. Rose Crossan, and they'll feature throughout today's program. APSAD have been a massive support, including bringing Christy Kokotis down from Australia to Aotearoa and scholarships for APSAD members to be here today. Liz is the executive officer. She's been in that role since 2006, bringing over 30 years' experience in alcohol and other drugs. Welcome, Liz. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Gadigal tua kaiga a toku whānau. Ko Liz Baxter toku ingua. Thank you to the Matua for the mihi and welcoming us today. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, are the traditional owners of the lands on which I live and work, and sovereignty has never been ceded. And also tangata whenua of the lands on which we meet today. I'd also like to acknowledge the Honourable Matt Doocey, New Zealand's First Minister for Mental Health and sponsor for the hui today at Parliament, Ingrid Leary, Member of Parliament and member of the Cross-Party MPs Group on Mental Health. It's great to see representation from across Aotearoa's Parliament on this important issue. I'd also like to thank Rose Crossan as APSAD's Aotearoa rep. She's been so amazing in the lead up to the day and instrumental in bringing APSAD together and the partnership with Alcohol Healthwatch. Thanks also to Andrew, Galloway and the Alcohol Healthwatch team for organising this symposium and bringing us all together and giving APSAD the opportunity to be involved. So, as you might guess, I'm representing the Australasian Professional Society in Alcohol and Drugs, APSAD. I'm really pleased to be here today with you all and support Alcohol Healthwatch and along with, as Andrew said, a number of travel scholarships to enable people from across Aotearoa to attend. So a bit about APSAD. The society was founded in the early 80s and we've got an annual conference and a scientific journal. The society is member-led and provides a network of alcohol and other drug workers, researchers, policymakers and peers. Our conference this year is in Gadigal, Sydney, 9th to the 12th of November with the theme Disrupting and Deconstructing Approaches to Drug Policy, Research and Practice. We're hoping to get some good discussion and debate going and we really want to challenge people's thoughts and perspectives. We don't have the best society, we don't have the best presence in Aotearoa, and we're hoping to fix this over the next few years, engaging and collaborating with more people and organisations. Today's symposium is a step in that direction. Rose has played a big part in helping us to bridge the Tasman, and I'd just like to thank her again for everything she's done. And I look forward to continue our collaboration and helping support the alcohol and other drug mental health sectors. Please feel free to come and speak to me or Rose about APSAD if you have any questions. I'm really excited about today's program. It looks great, and I'm learning from some amazing speakers. Thanks.
Kia ora, Liz, and thank you, Andrew, for welcoming us to the day as well. Now, just before I introduce the Minister, a brief reflection from me. I have had the privilege of spending much of the last 15 years travelling around this beautiful country, interviewing people from every walk of life, mainly in my role as a reporter for TVNZ, working on shows like Breakfast, Close Up, 7 Sharp, and Sunday. The weird thing about being a journalist is that one of the key parts of the job is stepping into the worst day of someone else's life. Typically, while other people are running away from tragedy and death and devastation and destruction, we, like some of you in your roles, are running towards those events to meet the people who are at the centre of them. There have been hundreds of stories over the years, but there are a few that stick out to me. 13 years ago, I learnt about the death of a 16-year-old named Robbie Cameron, who died on his family farm in the Wairarapa. Robbie was fit, he was healthy, he was much loved. He grew up in a family of 5 kids, growing up on a rural station. One night, he and his older brother and a few older relatives were sitting in the farm shed having some drinks. Robbie was 16 years old. He was very new to drinking. It was a cold night. There was a bonfire outside. They had some laughs, they had some beers, and in the early hours of the morning, they went back inside. They cooked some food. Robbie went to his room. He played some music. He sat on his computer and completed the design for a tree hut that he was going to build with his older brother, Kyle. And he went to bed, but he never woke up the next morning. Robbie had had a decent amount of alcohol that night, and he choked in his sleep, and that was the end of his life. And a couple of days later, my cameraman and I found ourselves driving up the dusty road to this farm. The Cameron family had agreed quite bravely to tell their story on national TV in front of 500,000 people, in part to educate other parents about the risks associated with teen drinking. We walked into the family home and into Robbie's bedroom, and there was his casket. He was lying on his bed in his coffin, surrounded by his teenage mates, and there was music blaring once again on the stereo. That's a moment that I will never forget. And his friends spoke really beautifully about their grief, but they also had a deeper message to share for other families. They said life is not about getting wasted every weekend. It is about being connected with and supporting and holding on to the people you love. As I look back over the last 15 years, many of the toughest stories that I have covered all have a link, and that link is alcohol. I've stood in a cemetery with a bunch of teenagers crowding around the grave of a young man who died in a boy racer crash that was driven by alcohol. I met another young man who went out to town on a Saturday night. He intervened in a dispute between a man and a woman. He ended up getting bashed and sustaining a serious brain injury that left him unable to walk or talk or even remember who he was. And that incident was fueled by alcohol. Most recently, I did a documentary on a young man who finished his year 13 exams. He went out with his good mate to celebrate. They got drunk, they got into an altercation on the way home. He ended up stabbing another young man to death and went to jail for murder. Why did he do it? Well, in part, he was under the influence of alcohol. And that alcohol consumption was influenced by his childhood trauma, physical, mental, and sexual abuse that he'd experienced as a young boy. So, look, I know that these stories are very familiar to many of you. Those of you who are working on the front line, you see the effects of alcohol harm every single day. And if we're honest, we see those consequences in our own lives as well. I've been pretty open over the last few years about my own journey through depression and suicidal thoughts. And while alcohol wasn't a major factor in that period of my life, it certainly became a crutch at times, something that I could rely on in order to try and escape my distress. So we have no shortage of stories, of case studies, of anecdotes like this, no shortage of lived experience. The question is, why is it so difficult to move the dial when it comes to alcohol harm, particularly given how much, as Andrew has already alluded to in his remarks, how much we already know about the social and economic burden that's caused by alcohol harm. So that's the bleak stuff, but on the positive side, I believe it has never been easier to talk about alcohol and alcohol harm in a public context. We've never had a greater understanding about the connection between alcohol and things like trauma, poverty, crime, ill health. An increasing number of people in my own life, and probably yours, are changing their relationship with alcohol, dramatically cutting back or cutting alcohol out completely, not just for dry July, but they're making significant and permanent changes to their drinking habits. When I was growing up down the road in Lower Hutt in the 90s, binge drinking was the norm for many of my mates. But we now have a new generation coming through, and the data shows that young people are drinking less and fewer young people are drinking hazardously. In many communities, choosing not to drink is no longer seen as conservative or weird. For many, it's actually associated with positive health and well-being. And there has never been a wider range of alcohol-free drink alternatives on the market. So none of these cultural changes are a panacea, but they give us a signal. They tell us that more New Zealanders are open to different ways of talking about alcohol, and potentially they're open to different ways to reduce the harm that we have all seen so much of in our communities. So that's what we're keen to unpack today, and the key focus for today's kōrero is the link between alcohol harm and mental health, which is why we're so pleased to be hosted today by Minister Matt Doocey, Minister for Mental Health and Associate Minister of Health. Now, some ministers come to this parliament and they are completely brand new to their portfolio areas, and it shows, if we're honest. This minister, that is not the case. Minister Doocey previously worked in mental health in New Zealand and the UK before coming home to work at Canterbury DHB. He was a founding member of the cross-party Mental Health and Addictions Wellbeing Group, and he's worked really hard to put mental health on the government's agenda. So, Minister, thank you very much for being here. We'll hand over now to you. Welcome, Minister Doocey.
Morena, kia ora koutou. Thanks, Jehan. I did get a slight bit of anxiety when I walked into the room and you were emceeing, because you might remember last time I spoke at an event you were emceeing was Takina in Wellington, and I was slightly under the pump around a political issue at the time, and all the media turned up halfway through my speech. So I'm hoping it's a bit more smoother today. Look, actually, what I will say, I don't actually know if I'm down to do this, but if you want to use Slido while I'm speaking, I'm more than happy to answer 2 or 3 questions as well. And also do that, because I know I'll enjoy looking at the face of the officials when I say that. They think, what's he going to say to the questions? Just to acknowledge Andrew and Liz, mana whenua, Nate, who gave us that very warm mihi as well. To everyone in the room who's travelled. I left my small town of Rangiora in Waimakariri in North Canterbury at about 5 a.m. this morning to head up here. On Mondays we have Cabinet in about 55 minutes on the 10th floor of the Beehive. I was just reflecting on what Jehan said about culture, and I do have a speech, I will say it. But it does strike me, I don't know if people know, this used to be the members' lounge many decades ago, and you could imagine it because it was pretty much male-dominated, coming up here for a few days, no internet, no phones, or at least ones that went stuck on the wall, emails, and this was full of snooker rooms, tables. So you could imagine they were in here with their cigars, cigarettes, drinking whiskey, pretty much the reports for the 3 or 4 days they're in Parliament. And then a bar was put in on the 3rd floor called Pickwick's, and you go back to the sort of commentary written about politics in the 80s and 90s, and they all talk about the deals being done on the bar in the 3rd floor where all the parties would sit together with the journalists and do the deals over a few bottles of whiskey. Why I raise it is a couple of months ago they closed the bar in Parliament because no one was going. I've been here about 11 years. I think I've stepped foot about 3 times in the place. Because nowadays, I mean, part of the issue is a public figure is it's probably be reported on by the media if you were in the bar. But it just goes to show how culture has shifted in places like this as well. Look, kia ora koutou katoa. It's a real pleasure to join you for the inaugural Alcohol and Mental Health Symposium. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the many people and organisations involved in creating this event, the first of its kind here in New Zealand, including Alcohol Watch, Tupu Ria Whānau Services, Otago University, Health Promotion, NPHS and others. This symposium offers a valuable opportunity to come together, identify opportunities and inspire action in prevention and early intervention. Each of you here today brings a wealth of experience, expertise and knowledge. We all have a collective goal today to take action on alcohol and mental health with a focus on prevention and early intervention. And I also too would like to acknowledge those here today with lived experience. And as Minister of Mental Health, I see firsthand the impact of hazardous alcohol consumption, where it can contribute to or exacerbate mental health issues. In New Zealand, research has found that having either alcohol use disorder or depression doubles the risk of the other, and that around 1/4 of all suicides involve heavy drinking. As a minister responsible for the alcohol levy, I also understand the harm that alcohol can cause and the impact on individuals, their family and wider communities, including mental distress and poor mental health outcomes. While we've seen some shift in the culture and conversations around alcohol consumption, we still have a lot of work to do. The 2023-24 New Zealand Health Survey found that around 1 in 5 adults remain impacted by hazardous drinking, a number which has remained relatively unchanged since 2016 and 17. At the same time, we know that hazardous drinking rates also remain higher among Māori and Pacific men and people living in the most deprived areas. Aligned with government goals and actions, we're taking this seriously. Through my mental health target, I set a goal of both increasing investment into prevention and early intervention. Also, the government policy statement on health has established an expectation for a year-on-year reduction in the proportion of those aged 15 and over who engage in hazardous alcohol consumption. We've also raised the alcohol levy, the first time in 15 years. Efforts to address the relationship between alcohol and mental health would have wide-reaching benefits and significantly contribute to the government's policy statement on health, as well as the Suicide Prevention Action Plan and the Mental Health Bill, which is going through Parliament at the moment. When I started this role, I made it clear that I had an ambitious goal to create a strong, sustainable and effective mental health and addiction system in New Zealand. It is encouraging to see all 3 of our wait time targets are improving, and 2 of those targets are already being met at a national level. It is encouraging to see all 3 of our wait time targets are improving, and my vision remains a system where the continuum of care from prevention and early intervention right through to specialist services. We started by creating 5 mental health targets. We want to ensure faster access to specialist mental health and addiction services. So the target there is 80% of people to be seen within 3 weeks. Faster access to primary mental health and addiction services. The target there is 80% of people to be seen 1 week for primary mental health and addiction. Shorter mental health and addiction stays in emergency departments 95% of people to been admitted, transferred or discharged within 6 hours, increase mental health and addiction workforce development, and strengthen focus on prevention and early intervention. What we've done there is the current mental health and addiction ring-fence funding is $2.6 billion, increased $200 million after budget 2024, and for the first time we've ring-fenced 25% of that funding to go towards prevention and early intervention. These targets should drive faster access and enable us to identify where the mental health and addiction system needs the most support. As New Zealand's First Minister for Mental Health, I'm clear that accountability is vital and that we will continue to take a proactive approach to improving access and providing timely mental health and addiction support when and where it's needed. This isn't going to be a fix overnight, and it's going to take a sustained and collaborative effort. However, we are making progress, and we've launched several initiatives specifically targeted at preventing alcohol harm in our communities. These have mental health components and will contribute to improving mental health outcomes in the long term. In February, I launched the Community Action Fund for community groups and providers to implement projects aimed at strengthening community capacity and fostering innovative local solutions to address alcohol-related harm. The total investment available for the first round of funding is $1 million. In March, I launched the first preventative specific investment in the health system to address alcohol-related harm in Pacific communities, the Pacific Strengthening and Innovation Fund, which aims to advance community-led solutions to address unmet need. And in mid-April, I also met with the players and senior leaders of Heartland's rugby unions from across the country. I met them in Levin to highlight a suite of initiatives aimed at encouraging rugby communities to foster a culture that supports low-risk drinking and promotes positive mental health. At the end of April, Health New Zealand released a suite of initiatives to help support the expansion of workforce training and alcohol screening and brief interventions for health professionals and other groups, including the Early Detection and Intervention Guide for professionals, a centralised digital toolkit to support having conversations about alcohol, and a web-based alcohol risk communication tool to support health professionals to have conversations with their clients about their alcohol consumption. I'm also excited to announce that the procurement for a $2.5 million social marketing behaviour change program will be concluded in the next few weeks, with a contract commencing shortly. So in conclusion, I want to reiterate that as Minister for Mental Health, my job is to ensure that we're doing everything we can to build a strong, sustainable and effective mental health and addiction system in New Zealand. Minimising and preventing alcohol harm, including hazardous alcohol consumption, is a key component of that, and we're committed to supporting this work. We need to work collaboratively with a solutions-focused approach. I encourage you all to keep doing the important work that you do and to listen and learn from each other. My door is always open, and I look forward to working more with you all in the future. Ngā mihi, thank you very much. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much. And Jenna, before I spoke, I made a joke with Jehan that last time he was emceeing, I was speaking and I looked up and the cameras were, and it was actually you who tracked me down at Takina. So you've got me a bit worried a bit now.
She's done it again. I'm not passing on inside information. Don't worry about that, Minister. Right, we do have time for a couple of questions, and pop your questions in via Slido. The details are on the screen. Minister, the top voted question: reduced alcohol harm requires less alcohol consumption. How are you managing this conflict with industry interests?
Yeah, look, fair to say, I actually meet the industry as well. When you look at it, I actually think they're largely on board. You look at the big shift towards zero alcohol drinks as well. I mean, that's a big focus. And we do know that when consumers go out, and if we're talking about licensed outlets who are requesting these drinks, and I think at the end of the day, they are responding to consumer demands. And The thing I'd point out, and I mentioned it in my speech, I went to the Hora Whenua Kapiti Rugby Club and met all the chief executives of the Heartland Rugby Union. And they've got a very impressive program that's been supported by Health New Zealand about breaking the link. And what was really powerful, it'd been a few years since I'd stepped into a rugby club, but there was, all these well-being posters on the bar. Now, I'm of the era that remembers playing rugby where the bar was the well-being initiative. So we've come a long way, and I think partly to do with education, better understanding, but I must say, for those younger ones in the room who aren't me, you are driving a lot of this because you are really changing the behaviour, so well done.
Minister Doocey, is there any political appetite to look at alcohol legislation reform?
Yeah, look, that's a conversation we haven't had yet. I'm not actually responsible for the Sale and Supply Liquor Act. That's Associate Justice Minister Nicole McKee. But look, we're working through these issues. Look, what I want to do, and most won't be surprised if you've heard me speak before, I genuinely think it's about building a consensus, taking a sector-led approach, and also a bipartisan approach. As you mentioned, I set up the first cross-party group with Louisa Wall at the time and Chloe Swarbrick. I know Ingrid Leary and others are continuing that as well. So that's where we want to take it. I think the best enduring change is bipartisanship. It's actually very much sector-led and building the consensus as well. So, when you look at the announcement we made at Mapumaya down in Christchurch recently, the first Pacifica alcohol harm-related fund as well, I mean, that's the stuff we want to get out on the ground because I think it's a real game changer.
What are the government's ideas or initiatives around regulating the alcohol industry's marketing, especially in social media?
Yeah, and you kind of caught me in a bit of limbo about that because as you would have heard in my speech, we're going through the procurement of that at the moment. It's a $2.5 million fund. It's called Social Marketing Behaviour Change Project. Look, we're really excited about it and hope to say a bit more about that soon.
Couple more things before we let you go. You would have seen Andrew's slide with the whole host of reviews and reports that have been done over many, many years.
Yes.
Are you confident that the mental health strategy will be bold enough to break that cycle?
Look, I don't. Bold is not really the issue, I think, if I can say that quite candidly. Let's look at Kia Manawa Nui, right? It's a great strategy. Everyone will read it and say, I agree with everything. The problem we've got is there's no implementation. There's no roadmap. It doesn't tell you what's going to happen by when. So look, we legislated for the last government's health reforms to have a mental health and wellbeing strategy. I've been very clear, it's just not going to be another strategy that sits on a shelf. It'll be more of a roadmap that has clearer roles and responsibilities, clearer timeframes, and actually people can see what will we get done by when. And I think that's what people want, an implementation plan, a roadmap, and addictions will be a key part of that.
And finally, we have another election coming up in about 18 months' time. When we get there, how will you, not to...
I thought that was the scoop. If I missed something that was
to shiver down your spine.
18 months is heaps. He reckons that's close.
How, when we get there, will you judge your own success in this portfolio, particularly in relation to alcohol harm?
Oh, look, good question. One thing I do know in this role is everyone will have their own metric. And so you should. That's been called democracy. Look, I genuinely think in this role, when the political winds shift, and the history of New Zealand politics shows that they do, I'd like the incoming government to say actually having a specific minister made a difference. So we want to continue with that. And that's actually what I'm hoping to do. So look, 18 months is still a long time in my game. When you've got Jenna over there and Bridie over there, anything can change daily sometimes. But look, I'm really keen to focus. Strategies are all very good, but we're at a time of implementation, I believe. And I think when you look at some of the stuff we're doing, rolling out peer support lived experience workers, one of them I met at the Christchurch ED official launch a couple of weeks ago, had come from her own journey of battling alcohol abuse. And now in recovery, several years later, she's coming back as a peer support lived experience worker who will be in the emergency department. Christchurch Public Hospital is one of the busiest in the country, supporting those in a similar experience as where she was several years ago. So I think that's going to be a real game changer.
Okay, Minister, we're out of time, but thank you once again for hosting us today. Round of applause for the Minister.